Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing 2019's Ford v Ferrari, directed by James Mangold, director of Logan 2017, Walk the Line 2005, Heavy 1995. Mangold is also director for the Wolverine in 2013. So he has some good, he has some bad. Night and Day in 2010, and also 310 to Yuma. So my small roundup of interpretation of what Mangold is, he is a director that tries to do the most with what he can with whatever script he has. And so Ford v Ferrari, I think, is pretty good, pretty adequate. It's going to vary by the type of viewer you are as a movie watcher. This is what I would categorize as something more or less like a dad movie. You get your old timers coming together, and for one last hoorah or one last race or something like that. You got to get the team together to do the thing to beat the so. It's very much the same formula as a lot of sports movies. Mangold has a visual eye and a visual style that is different than most quote unquote dad movies. So I would elevate this and put the acting and the cinematography above most of those categorical dad movies, like I said. And when I'm saying dad movies, I'm thinking, like your sports movies. Not that, that doesn't gear to both sexes, but, just generally speaking, the sports movies is, we got to get the team together to beat the thing, to beat the guy, and they may or may not do it. And there's very kind of a binary outcome when it comes down to it. They either beat them or they don't. And there's usually some small tropes or variables that are addressed along the way. And so this movie definitely hits those similar tropes. We get some of the crew that's kind of wacky. We get the leader. We get the quirky guy that kind of has to go outside the lines. So the leader being Matt Damon, and the quirky guy has to go outside the lines, being Christian Bale, and he's just weird enough that he might be able to do it, that kind of thing. But overall, I enjoyed this movie. It's written by Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, and Jason Keller. They're best well known for being writers of... It's loading. They were writers on Spectre, 2015. Black Mass, 2015. Edge of Tomorrow. A lot of people had better things to say about that. And a lot of other smaller build media. That was Jez Butterworth. John Henry also joined him on Edge of Tomorrow as well. I don't see any other movies that... Fair Game as well. Fair Game must be a smaller, kind of like a B movie or something like that, smaller, low budget. And Jason Keller was also a writer on this movie. He was a writer on Escape Plan 2013, Machine Gun Preacher, and A Good Day to Die Hard. So, like I said, with the dad movies, all of those sound like B action movies, B action dad movies. And so that really explains what's going on with how this movie is set tonally. So we have Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby. Carroll Shelby being the, Ford's Carroll Shelby. He was an American automotive designer, race car driver, and entrepreneur and author. Best known for his involvement with the AC Cobra and Mustang, and later known as Shelby Mustangs for Ford Motor Company. So, yeah, he's pretty well known guy in the automotive industry, and they also pick up a British driver, Ken Miles. Ken Miles, a British sports race car driver, engineer, and driver, best known for his motorsport career in the U.S. with American teams on the international scene. Um, he was inducted into the Motorsports Hall of Fame in the States. And so, yeah, I don't want to talk too much about Ken Miles until we kind of get into the story, but yeah, seemed to be kind of one of these like eccentric guys that went a little bit extra above and beyond what he needed to do as a driver, and someone that had high skilled knowledge of these cars at the time. And so I think the acting, the casting, it all works. Let's go to the pros real quick. The pros, it feels old school. Like I said with the dad movie feel, it has all of these old school tropes that, they work for the type of movie that you're watching. Because we have such of a strong cast, this was released in December, so they wanted this to have some sort of awards, recognition and stuff like that. The problem I would say, hold on, Alexa, stop and shut your ass. I'm gonna have to edit that out, damn it. But yeah. So the problem with this movie, I felt like in areas, was somewhat of the predictability of it. It has almost every trope of, is the team going to beat the other team. And so this whole movie is about the Ford Motor Company deciding to hire Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles to design a race car team, driver, and car to beat the Ferrari company in the Le Mans 1966 race. And Le Mans 66 is actually what the movie was called in some European territories. So, just because it's probably a little bit more well known there. Let me give you a little bit better of a synopsis of this real quick before I go into cons and stuff like that, so that you kind of have a base layer of what we're about to discuss. American car designer Carroll Shelby and driver Ken Miles battle corporate interference and the laws of physics to build a revolutionary race car for Ford in order to defeat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1966. So essentially they got to build a race car team, driver, etc. They got to have all of it, and they got to do it in like a short amount of time. They got to build a badass car, and they got to race in this race it's a 24-hour race. It's something ridiculous, and it's extremely hard to see because of the curves, and because it's not just going in loop to loops. It's it's an actual track, going kind of going weaving and bobbing through. It's not just taking a left for 400 laps. It's much more intricate than that. It's kind of hard to describe because it's in European territories, but I would almost say it's like driving through like mountainous in some areas. But yes, they have all of the tropes that normally happen in these types of racing movies. The movie I was most thinking of, that came top of mind would be the movie Rush. The movie Rush has Chris Hemsworth and another guy. I don't remember the other guy's name. I think he plays like a Russian guy or something. I don't remember, but it's very much the same dynamic of them kind of butting heads. But I kind of did think that Rush was the superior racing movie in between these two. I don't want to kind of go into a big Rush review right now, but I think it was Ron Howard that directed it, and Chris Hemsworth acted his ass off. He basically plays a rock star race driver, and we are on the opposite side following another driver. I can't remember what his name is, but it's a fantastic movie, and I feel like it kind of goes a little bit more into the nitty gritty of both sides of what we're actually learning about. So essentially, we are the underdogs in this movie, Ford v Ferrari, in their perspective the entire time. And so we don't really get to see too much of what Ferraris are all about, because at the very beginning, Ferrari's for sale, and they kind of are open to a negotiation and possibly being bought out by Ford. I had no idea that Ford was, the big motor company, big corporate motor company that was looking for, you know, recognition in sales. They wanted to improve their image, so they were interested in buying Ferrari. But at the very beginning of the movie, it's not really spoilerish, but because it means the movie title, they actually, Ford sits down with Ferrari, the head guy. I don't remember his name, but he's kind of this asshole, and he yeah, and this guy, this Italian guy that owns Ferrari at the time, is basically telling him to, go fuck off, you American fucks, that type of shit. And the Ford goes back and reports it back to the head guy at Ford, played by what's his name, Tracy Letts, and I love Tracy Letts in this. Tracy Letts gobbles up a scene. He just chews it up and gobbles it out like he owns the scene. I think this guy is one of the most notorious low-key actors out there. He's kind of his ability to kind of transform into the characters he plays, even though that he's not doing a full Daniel Day-Lewis on it, I still 100% believe everything he's doing, and that's the thing about it, about his acting, and I love him in this movie. He plays the Henry Ford II, and Enzo Ferrari was the Italian guy that basically tells John Berthal's character to Henry Ford to go. He tells Henry Ford to go fuck off. Excuse me, I need to get a little coffee. So, yeah, through the beginning of the movie, Enzo Ferrari basically tells Henry Ford II to go fuck off. You're not going to buy our company, you American fucks. And so it's like, oh shit. So that's what instantly sets off the kicker for John Bernthal's character, Lee Iacocca, to go hire the race car driver Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles. And so, without going into any more depth or spoilery stuff, this does have the similar tropes that you would see in a lot of the sports movies. There's always somebody within our own team. Think of like The Longest Yard. There's someone's always trying to infiltrate the team and trying to fuck up something good that is on our side. So there's basically a rat on our team. This movie kind of has that same trope and same style. I kind of wish it didn't follow that same direction. This movie was made on a $97 million budget, and it made $226 million at the box office. And I think this was one of the last 20th Century Fox movies out there, which is pretty impressive. This is an expensive movie. I didn't realize that this was that high up. But if you think about all of the people that are, all of the main actors, they're all really high caliber actors. Probably, I think they're all Oscar nominated. I don't know if either one of them have won. I don't remember. But yeah, the roles that they set out to play in these are excellent. Matt Damon and Christian Bale really harness these characters, even though we've seen them as Batman and we've seen them as Jason Bourne. There's never a time that even came to my mind. But and it's funny because they have scuffles, and it's like, oh, Jason Bourne versus Batman, and it looks like shit. Because they're playing their age in this. So let me go into the cons real quick before the music in this. It feels like TV music from sitcoms or from like a TV movie or something like that. It did not feel like it set up stakes in a way that made me feel like anything was really going to happen, which actually throws me for a loop at the very end of the movie. But I'll explain that in a spoiler section. But yeah, I really did think that the movie is set in tone by the music, and the tone of the music does not signal intense drama. It's more like kind of laissez-faire. Yeah, we'll get them next time. We'll do it. We'll teamwork. It's more or less optimism, I guess, is what the music is setting in tone, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Having an optimistic movie is good. There were a couple things I wrote down in the notes that I think that need to be noted in the spoiler section, but I did feel like the music probably needed to be ratcheted up a little bit more. Now, during the race scenes, I will say the sound design and the music generally worked for me pretty well, but throughout the majority of the movie, I didn't feel this urge or sense of, a looming that might happen or that might come. Now, that might be my lack of knowledge in history, because if you know your car knowledge and you know your race knowledge and you know your history about, who's going to win and what's going to happen, who's going to get a promotion, who's going to get fired, that kind of thing, then this movie is going to be a completely different experience. Now, given I was not, I don't know Carroll Shelby's history. I don't know Ken Miles' history. I don't know Henry Ford the second's history, but it does feel like we're kind of getting an insight into it. But yeah, I think overall they did a great job embodying these roles. I will say, I think that the movie is, I think, about 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. It's a little bit of a long one. Let me see. Yeah, 1 hour 52 minutes. So yeah, it's about that. But let me see. Anything else? Let me see. Anything else we need to talk about? Okay, so okay. Let's hop into cons. On the cons, awkward dad humor. I think there's a lot of humor that is very surface level that would be funny to a dad for some reason. I don't know why. That's the one thing that came to mind. I was like, this humor is kind of you would laugh at it because someone else was laughing at it just to be nice. It never felt like I guess it's not mean spirited in a way. Now that I think about it, I really can't think any way like that. I don't know. I might when I'm looking at the notes. All right, we're hopping into spoiler section for Ford v Ferrari, starting right now. And I think we're gonna do some ASMR, ACMR. I'm just kidding. We're not doing ACMR. I'm just giving you a chance to put the spoiler section on because I don't know. In case you want to watch it. Okay, back to the show. All right, so okay, so let's see. Ford at the beginning is having their worst quarter, and they want a new image. They want to look sexy. I didn't realize at the beginning of this movie who we were supposed to be rooting for. At first, I thought we were going for Ferrari. At first, I was like, is Ford the corporate overlord that's kind of the assholes? What's going on? And it turns out it's vice versa. And Ford still ends up being a corporate overlord by the end of this, and is still looked as kind of, traditional. And Ferrari is supposed to be looked at as, at the beginning, as the chic and shiny and sexy new thing. But it doesn't come across as that at the very end of this. By the end of this movie, it's very interesting to see how these companies are even interpreted. I feel like the fact is, I have absolutely no idea if they got permission from Ford or Ferrari that they could have these cars and their name and all in there. I feel like the only way you can have it is by saying it's a dramatization or something like that. I don't I don't know exactly what the legality is for having brand names in your movies, especially if it's loosely based off of history. So yeah, because I don't think either one of the companies come out looking strong. I think looking positive. It mostly looks like they're using their consumers, or they're using the cars just to lure more customers to turn them into consumers and whatnot. And they already are very aware of their image in the 60s. Ford is also places a lot of importance in Lamont. And the line from, I think it's Enzo, you're Henry Ford, you're not Henry Ford, you're Henry Ford the second. Like, it almost sounded like he pulled out a proverbial gun and shot Tracy Letts in the stomach in that scene when John Bernthal has to relay all of this information straight back to him. I just love the lineup. I love the cinematography of the way that the Ford company is set up. Very textbook by the numbers, corporate. And Tracy Letts is such a hard ass. And I don't know what Henry Ford II looks like. I kind of want to look him up. Let me see. I wonder if he looks anything like Tracy Letts. Let's see. Henry Ford II. What? It said, can you Ford the sack? What? What the hell? I don't understand. Henry. I typed Henry Ford. Oh, fuck. Henry. What the fuck was that? Sorry if y'all. God. Okay, so Tracy Letts looks like he gained about like 20 pounds, mostly in the face, to play Henry Ford II. And I feel like Henry Ford II was not that big. And a big part of the script is Enzo insulting him on being kind of a quote unquote, fat pig. And I think that's what he calls him specifically. And I wasn't going to, Tracy Letts generally does, just looks like, your average, middle-aged guy, but, handsome, but they are trying to really weed out what he looks like in this. And I don't feel like he didn't need to gain that much weight or they didn't need to make him look so, bleh. But I guess it just adds salt to insult to injury, or whatever, insult to injury. I don't know what the fuck the line is. Fuck it. All right. So they are describing the difficulty of the course, the way you have to bob and weave in and out of the curves and stuff like that. I did think that there was kind of a lacking of understanding of how big the perspective of the course is. I don't know if it's just me me trying to recall what happened, but I can't exactly remember anything of substance seeing an overhead shot of the course, or of the racetrack. Sorry. So I did feel like we just saw bits and pieces of it, and some really wide turns in some parts, and some wrecks in other parts. Like, I love the racing. I just didn't feel like I had perspective of how far they had to go, even though it's 24 hours. And they talk about having to build this race car in 90 days. It's like, holy Santa Claus shit. And his wife, played by Ken Miles' wife, played by Catriona Balfe, plays Molly Miles. I liked her. She's not your quote unquote average female in a dad movie, or average wife in the dad movie. Normally the ones that are kind of put to the side, or normally telling the husband, we can't do that. She doesn't exactly care that he's driving again, even though Ken Miles has decided to drive and kind of he's and you know how some guys act like they cheat. Well, Ken has to act like he's not cheating, but he's racing on the side. You know, he's seeing instead of seeing a girl on the side, he's racing on the side, and so she's like, you know, Ken, if you are racing on the side, you need to tell me, and basically she agrees with them at a certain point and says, yeah, take the money. You definitely need to get back into the game. Money is not exactly the strong suit at this garage that they're owning. She's Catriona Balfe is also in Money Monster and Escape Plan. Escape Plan was that one movie that the writers had also been on, so she's been in other things before. Josh Lucas plays the Leo Bib character. I don't know if I said that. Beeb character. He is the notorious asshole that is trying to fuck up the entire team, the plans, throw a monkey wrench in it, and stop all the gears from going and flowing. He does a pretty good job with it in some certain areas. I don't recall if there is an exact reason why he wants to just be a stick in the mud. He is such a terrible, despicable character, and I don't remember if it was just for him being petty for absolutely no reason or what. It's not like he was being paid by Ferrari. Just saying stupid stuff like all the cars. We need to get Ken Miles to line up with everybody at the end of the race so that they have 3 Fords winning at the very end. So it's a historic moment at the Le Mans. But it ends up fucking him over at the end. It's like, what the fuck? Like, you petty ass fucker. And of course Ken does it at the very end, being a good guy. But jeez, just such an asshole just pettiness, just straight pettiness, absolutely unnecessary. But yeah, so the wreck in the middle of the story was absolutely something. The wreck in the middle of the story was something that I was curious if it was going to happen. Mostly just PTSD comes from that. He's not harmed despite his arm. Yeah, there's several times where there's like, oh my gosh, is he going to wreck? Oh my gosh, is he going to wreck? Oh my god, mostly during racing movies, you're like, oh gosh, is he going to wreck? Because that's always seems to be a big thing. And then it becomes a comeback story. And I'm not going to say whether it happens in other movies we discussed about, but I personally think it adds a layer to the story that makes it even more of a underdog story. And you can just see Ken Miles just deciding that this is giving me PTSD, but he hops right back in the car. He doesn't give a shit. The races are absolutely thrilling as shit in this. There's basically only 3 options in these movies. You win, you lose, or you wreck. Let me see. Matt Damon in the final Le Mans race loves fucking with the Italians. Taking their watches, their screws. I was like, oh my Lanta. When you're watching these cars drift like Tokyo Drift style on the side of the damn Le Mans street, it is turning the brakes absolutely bright orange red, hot, glowing. They almost look like they're on fire, and they just look beautiful. And I was watching this on the projector, so I was really impressed by the color actually still coming through on there. My projector doesn't look nearly as good as many people's projector. Mine's kind of a cheap old one, but still, I thought it was a beautiful look on those, the cars and the racing and the way it's all shot. It's all very thrilling. So yes, the stupid photo, just absolutely ridiculous. And then at the very end, Ken ends up losing because of a technical foul or something like that, because he had started behind, because he had started, the other guy had started behind Ken, so therefore he went further or something. I don't know, but regardless, I was like, this is the dumbest technical foul that I've ever heard of. And I is that even a thing? Like, if you're on a race, like if you're the very furthest person back and you beat the first person, or you tie with the first person, is it technically your win? Like, does anyone know if you know your racing stuff? Let me know. Just add it in the comments section or something like that. I was just like, what is going on? Um, so yeah, the chemistry between the guys ends up being what is the saving grace of the movie. They're a lot of fun to listen to, and the supporting cast as well. Of course, it is. Excuse me. The majority of them are men, I guess, because it's male centric dominated sport at this time. But yeah, I was very impressed by the strong cast. Tracy Letts, John Bernthal. We got Josh Lucas. I hated the guy, which means he's probably doing his job. You got Matt Damon, Christian Bale. It's hard not to like all these people, and in new actresses like Catriona Balfe. Like I had never heard of her. The son, Noah Jupe. Mixed feelings on him. You see him like watching Ken throughout the entire movie, and I did feel like the kid kind of trended between acting like he was about 6 to like 10, and he's probably actually like 12 or 13. But regardless, you do kind of see the PTSD in the son's eyes, and the son being worried the entire time, watching his father race, and just showing the difficulty and what that would do to somebody. There is some sort of PTSD with that, with regards to watching these wrecks happen and thinking that your father or your husband or your wife, if it's your wife that's a race driver or something like that, that watching these wrecks happen all over can definitely cause a toll. And so you see it through the son's eyes. Like 90% of the movie, it's 2 hours 15 minutes in the movie. All right, race is done. They lost first, and they technically got second. And so he's like, all right, everything's okay. It's going to be a good day, and you know what? We'll win next year or something like that. And they're casually showing everybody, still driving cars in the desert and trying to make them go faster, take off the car parts and whatnot. You're like, okay, this is going to be a happy ending. And if you're joining right now, we're in spoiler section, just letting you know. But Ken is just driving. You get a perspective from the son, and then all of a sudden Ken is listening to good music, and then the car goes into like a ditch or something like that, and I think there's like a small explosion, and it's still like relatively happy music going on, and you slowly realize, oh my Lanta, I think Ken just died. And I think for 2 hours of the movie, I was thinking that I was like, you know what this movie needs? It really needs a nice wreck. And then it actually happens in the middle. I was like, okay, we got our wreck. And then the final wreck happens where it's Ken taken out. Because at first I thought that wreck caused Ken to die originally. The first wreck. I was like, did they just kill Ken halfway through this? I was like in shock. So that didn't happen. It just happened to be, they downplayed that first wreck so bad, I was not ready for the follow-up wreck. And it's happened so subtly, and because it happens subtly, because it happens in between them losing, and then Ken loses the race, and then Ken loses his life. It's like, oh my God, this is definitely changed in shifts in style. And of course, it's because real life dictates what would probably happen in the majority of these movies, unless they wanted to go off script, which I'm assuming that the majority of this movie is on script, and that he did actually slow down for the photo, or he did do whatever Carol Shelby was asking, and he didn't win that race. And so I don't have the list of things that this movie and real life happens. What's the big difference in it? But yeah, I think overall it still captured the essence of these characters and who they were. You definitely felt like they were, old time buddies, even when they're wrestling down the grass. to when Carol Shelby's just showing up at his house and talking to his son. At the very end, it's that that moment was not like triggering, but it was like it was emotional. I was not expecting like I said, 2 hours, 15 minutes in the movie. I was like, all right, you know what? This is a good solid 7 of a movie, and I'd recommend it to dads and whatnot. But then at the very end, we lose Ken, and I was like, God, this really hurts, and I'm starting to have an emotional reaction. And so when I start to have that emotional reaction, I can start to feel something a little bit from the movie. I will give it a leg up, a slightly better of a grade, because I thought the movie was just okay for the first, I thought the movie was just fine. It was a great watch. It's a great sit, but overall, I was gonna forget it. But at this very last 5 minutes, that's when it hooked me. That's when I realized how gripped I was on these characters, and how much I wish that Ken had won. I wish that Ken didn't die. I wish that he didn't get fired at that one point. There were so many points that I was just like, I was like, damn, this guy really got fucked. It's like, it sucks, but at least we get to to see the positive stuffs, the positive stuff that happened through movies like this. But yeah, that last 5 minutes got me. I was like, oh damn, feel me right in the heart, right in the heart. But yeah, it was an emotional movie at the end. It was something that I really needed, probably almost to. It's an emotional gut punch that I was just not ready for, and so maybe if it had happened earlier, it'd be a completely different movie. But yeah, I don't know. Thank y'all for listening, watching LuckyDog Podcast, the Ford v Ferrari review. If you're watching live right now, we are on Twitch. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to everybody that has decided to follow us on Twitch. I really appreciate all of the support. I'm going to give y'all quick... let me see if I can do it real quick. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to do it real quick. And if I mispronounce it, I'm sorry. Either email or text, or not text, Twitter. Sorry, Twitter us. Let me know how to pronounce it, and I'll fix it up. But y'all know I'm terrible at pronunciations. Just want to say thank you to Mac24 USC for the follow. Robert Joe, Francis, Sarah Jawd, Matt Gilbert, Low Key T, Nikos Karanas, Thor Lucas, Ala, Vincent Hepburn, Christopher Vargas, The Black Phantom, Cristiano Dijapari, and Deepak Shawani. Thank you all for following and subscribing. Could not do these podcasts, streams and SoundClouds and YouTubes and uploads without you. I mean, that's how, the follows and subscriptions and comments and questions and concerns, all of that, that's how I know you're enjoying it. That's how I know you are, absorbing the podcast and understanding what I'm saying, and you're digging what I'm saying. I'm getting some positive reviews, and I think it was there was one more person that joined us last night, was giving me some good feedback on some stuff. Yay, Cherry Bomb! Thank you for the follow as well. They were helping me out with some sound stuff on Twitch, and of course, if anything's going wrong with the podcast, if anything's going wrong with the video, audio, something like that, we're constantly improving and taking suggestions and upgrading equipment as usual. But thank you for all your support, all the donations, all of that. That all goes to the back end support of the LuckyDog podcast and helps us improve with streaming quality and obtaining new content. And so, yes, we could not do this without you. Check out all the social medias. We have an abundance of social medias available. I probably should have had it up on this screen while I was doing it. Oh, whoops. Anyways, we'll do it on the next one. We have social medias available at Comments, questions, concerns, email luckydogpodcast@gmail.com. We have changed it to Lucky Dog Podcast. It's in the description. Twitter, Lucky Dog Podcast. Facebook, link, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, links all down below. Lucky Dog is one word. Podcast is another, if anyone wants to know how to find us on the Soundclouds or, popular playlists or media players or whatever the hell you're looking at. But yes, thank you for supporting Lucky Dog Podcast. We are on Call of Duty about every other day because of the quarantine. There's not shit to do, so we are on there. Come hang out there with us. I'll answer questions, and we'll just fuck around and shoot the sheet and whatever. Maybe do some watch parties and check out some stuff. We currently just reviewed Portrait of the Lady on Fire, so be sure to look for that. Devs Season 1, Episode 8, Season Finale. Devs is the new sci-fi Hulu television show. It's really awesome. I'll be honest. It has Nick Offerman in it, and some of the people that were involved in Alex Garland, the director of Ex Machina. He made this entire series. It's only 8 episodes. Very bingeable. Really would recommend it. Money Heist. Everyone's hopping on the Money Heist train. I can't believe we were. I don't want to toot my horn too much, but I feel like we were Money Heisting a couple years before everybody, and I think everyone that has been following along on the Looked Out podcast can attest to that as well. I just want to point that out, that we might be ahead of the curve when it comes to our Money Heist reviews and whatnot. So we're going to continue dropping those. We got part 4 already available. Platform, the new movie on Netflix, we have that review already released. And if you want to go behind the scenes of the Lug It Out podcast and hear what we're discussing non-movie related, go to the Aftercast. That is released on YouTube and SoundCloud and everything like that. Recorded live on Twitter. Recorded live on Twitter. What the hell am I talking about? Recorded live on Twitch. And it's a lot of fun. Recently, we've kind of been discussing a lot more of the quarantine stuff. So, but yeah, I could not do this podcast without you. Thank you for watching, listening, supporting Lug It Out Podcast. All right, everyone, take it easy.